yeah. Who is the immigrant? If we are living in the same land, sharing the same sun. Who is the immigrant?
And now we welcome to Impact Talks Dr. Mai-Phuong Nguyen, a first-generation Vietnamese-American physician, minority healthcare and refugee rights advocate, and a filmmaker who has produced award-winning films and multimedia content for mainstream television, as well as ethnic radio, Vietnamese and Spanish in particular. Dr. Mai-Phuong's medical training has taken her around the world, focusing on building healthier communities and cultivating relationships between people of diverse cultures and environments. So thank you for being on the show again, Dr. Mai-Phuong.
Thank you for inviting me, Pamela.
I'm so glad you chose to come to the show today because, as you know, not many can do what you do. So I really want to ask you something a little bit out of the box here. What fuels your passion? You're a physician, you're an advocate, incurable writer, and communicator. How do you do all these things with everything else that's going on?
I pay a price for it, Pamela. So I'm here talking about mental health awareness because you can't do it all at once. So you do it in stages. Mm-hmm. I did not have this wisdom 20 years ago. I tried to do it all at once and it broke me. So I think for those listening who have aspirations in all these various passions, it's important to follow your passions, but it's also too important to set safe boundaries. And being a first-generation immigrant, a refugee immigrant, and there's a fine line, big difference. I had no mentors other than my hardworking parents who didn't teach me healthy boundaries because they worked 3 jobs 24/7, 7 days a week. And so that was my norm.
Right.
And so one cannot operate in that fashion and not learn self-care secrets and healthy habits. Like I always ate right, exercise, but setting limits and those, I think those secrets, if someone was to ask me, a young person, because I do some mentoring for young physicians and people who want to do what I do, which is doctor people, is just to find good mentors and set healthy limits. I didn't have that growing up. So those were very hard lessons I had to learn in the School of Hard Knocks.
And that's why it's really important for us to have this conversation. So can you tell me a little bit about how, what recommendation would you give someone that's going through a crisis like that and maybe has to do a switch? They love one thing, because I know the last time we had talked, you had to switch a little bit your focus in the medical profession, and now you're doing hospice, I think.
Yes.
So how?
Actually, I'm taking a break from medicine.
Because I'm thinking if someone is passionate about something and then they have something, they're dealing with some like mental health issues, that transition may also be a stressor.
Absolutely.
Remember you told me, you said, I went through all this medical school and now on this.
Yes. So for all those struggling to become a doctor, because honestly, hats off to anybody who wants to become a doctor. I'm not singing my praises. For those who don't know what it takes to become a doctor, it takes everything. Everything. So you are not at only the top of your classes, but then it's like making sausage. They take the best meat, they grind it up, and they want us to become whole and holistic and compassionate at the end. And I have to say, a lot of people do not maintain their integrity and all that good stuff at the end. And again, when those who have mentors, they're spared a lot of that sausage-making destruction. And I'm very proud to say that I went through that disintegration to reintegrate myself. And I can honestly say, and I can relate to young people because I'm hip happening and I'm cool, but I speak their language and I understand their struggles. And I'm always reinventing myself to keep it anew. But it comes with a cost and a price unless you know how to pace yourself. And so pacing oneself is really important. And I'm not answering your question. Your question is, what would be my tidbit of advice for someone is just follow your passions, but set realistic goals and benchmarks and keep accountability partners.
Correct.
Like find someone who will keep you accountable. Like, I want to write my bestseller. That's been on my list for the last 10 years. I now have a deadline. I now have writers to sit with me, to hold me accountable. I'm part of writers groups. So to answer your question, I have stepped off the primary care treadmill, and hospice was a wonderful gift from the universe to allow me to spend more time with my patients. But for those who don't know what hospice is, we're caring and attending to dying patients or patients with terminally yucky diseases. So it is emotionally very taxing. But it was an area that I could work on my own time. And I have a new son, or I had a new son 6 years ago, an aging parent, so it was more flexible. But before I got to that point, I worked in every healthcare model you can imagine. I worked 5, 6, 7, 8 days. I worked for the poorest communities here in East LA because that's why I went into medicine, because I'm really idealistic, but I paid a huge price for it. It just made my depression worse, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And most people in our Western healthcare system was, well, of course you'd be depressed. You're taking care of guns and knife club gangs, or people are poor, or they can't speak English, or they don't have homes. So take this pill. And that was their quick fix. And unfortunately, I'm not disrespecting our healthcare system. I'm speaking the truth.
Yeah.
And I had to keep on finding and fighting and finding ways to heal myself and to stay in recovery. And it has taken 25 years.
But you've come a long way, and you're sitting here and you're happy. And I want you to tell our listeners or someone that might be watching.
There's hope.
The hope.
Even when there isn't hope, there's always hope. But
There's
you have
always
to
hope.
you have to fight it. So it takes courage and commitment to walk this road. When you get a wonderful diagnosis like chronic depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or, someone
and
who
there's
suffered.
nothing to be ashamed of.
No.
Yes, there's nothing to be
Raymond
ashamed
shared
of.
his story about being sexually abused, so much domestic violence, so much sexual abuse. And the shame of living with this and just that in and of itself compounds the problem. And so I come from a wonderful family. I felt loved growing up, but, we're still pretty traditional. There is no word for bipolar disorder, depression in Vietnamese. It's all lumped into the word crazy.
And that's the word.
It's crazy.
We need to take that out of our
So
vocabulary.
there's no such demarcation of those things. And so I go on the
That's where the
talking
stigma
circuit.
lies, and we need
My
to
parents
solve
are
it.
like dying at home. They're like, what? You're going to go out and talk about this on radio again? And I'm like, yeah, Dad, I might save someone's life.
I want to say thank you for taking the courage. And I know how tough it is for the community to understand, but this is the first step. And remember, you just might have saved someone's life.
That's right.
So appreciate you coming. Thanks for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
I'm certain that today you have touched someone. So this is Impact with Pamela Anchang on KPFK 90.7 FM.